Good morning, dear students of class 8. Welcome to the English online learning class. Today we are going to further continue with the lesson The Open Window of, by H. Monroe. We are going to take up first a quick recap and then we will continue with the lesson The Open Window Part 5. So Frampton Nuttall is suffering from nervous breakdown. He's been advised by the doctor to visit countryside for cure, and his sister, who has been to the village, she gives him some letters of introduction of those persons whom she knew there. That is going to help him in settling in the village for some days' stay. So the first house that he visits is Mrs. Sappleton's house. Mrs. Sappleton at that time was not downstairs in the sitting room where he was attended by Mrs. Sappleton's niece, and his niece, who was a 15-year-old confident girl, said her aunt would be coming anytime she was upstairs. Now, in the meantime, she said that we can talk. During this conversation, when this girl began the conversation, she tried to ask him, does he know many people in the village? Mr. Frampton says that he doesn't. Actually, his sister was staying here 4 years ago. Now, then this girl began by saying that then that means you do not know anything about my aunt. Frampton said only her name and address. Now, the girl said that actually a tragedy happened with my aunt 3 years ago. Frampton is surprised. Now, the girl said that you would be wondering why in an October afternoon the French window is left wide open. Frampton agreed by saying that it is quite warm for the time of the year. Now the niece began by saying that out through this window 3 years ago, Mrs. Sappleton's husband, her 2 young brothers, they went for the day shooting and they never returned back. They were caught in the bog and even the bodies were not recovered. While she was saying this, she did not sound confident anymore. Her voice faltered. She could feel the tragedy. And moreover, she said, her poor aunt believes that they are going to come back, along with the little brown spaniel with whom they had gone for hunting. And that is why the window is left open every evening till it is quite dark. Now, the girls further said that it gives her even a creepy feeling that they might walk any time through the window. Now, and when the girl was speaking the statement, suddenly Mrs. Sappleton came, and it was a relief for Frampton because he was also feeling very scared. Mrs. Sappleton began by saying that I hope Vera was entertaining you. And Frampton added by saying that she had been very interesting. Then the aunt referred that would he mind if the window is open, because her husband and brothers will be home directly after shooting. And she also said that because they had been out for shooting in the marshes, they are going to return back and they are going to really spoil the carpets. She was just talking about shooting and the scarcity of birds, but for Frampton it was sounding very horrible. he wanted to change the topic and he started talking about his own health. But Mrs. Appleton seemed uninterested in his talk. Then suddenly Mrs. Appleton's face brightened up as she said that it seems they are coming. Her husband and her two brothers, whom Vera had already said that they were dead 3 years ago, and Aunt believes that they would be coming any time, even up to this day, through the open window, and that is why the open window is left open. The French window is left open. We stopped here in the previous class. Now let us continue further. Here they are at last, she cried, just in time for tea, and don't they look as if they were muddy up to the eyes? So Mrs. Appleton said that finally they are right in time for tea. And as I said that they would be muddy, they are. Frampton shivered slightly and turned towards the niece with a look intended to convey sympathetic comprehension. So Frampton turned towards the niece because he also felt sorry for the aunt, because as told by the niece, the three men, aunt's husband and her two brothers, they had gone for shooting 3 years ago and they never returned back. And aunt believed that they would come, and that is why the French window was left open. So Frampton turned towards Vera as if he was trying to convey his sympathies for the aunt. But the child was staring out through the open window with a dazed horror in her eyes. But the niece was looking dazed, horrified, and she was looking through the window. In a chill shock of nameless fear, Frampton swung round in his seat and looked in the same direction. Even Frampton started looking in the same direction where the niece was looking. In the deepening twilight, three figures were walking across the lawn towards the window. They all carried guns under their arms, and one of them was additionally burdened with a white coat hung over his shoulders, as explained by the niece Vera. That was Mrs. Appleton's husband, and a tired brown spaniel kept close at their heels. According to Vera, all these three persons, including the dog, they were caught in the bog 3 years ago, and their bodies were not recovered. Noiselessly they neared the window, the house, and then a hoarse young voice chanted out of the dusk, "I say, Bertie, why do you bound?" This was younger brother Ronnie. He was singing the same tune which Vera had said and which irritated Mrs. Appleton. So Frampton was scared, was dead scared, because according to Vera, these people had already died, and he could see them coming. So he had the feeling that probably they were the ghosts. And you can imagine Mr. Frampton's state of mind, how scared he was. We'll stop here and we'll continue with the remaining in the next class as to what happened. Were these three people, including dog, the fourth one, were alive or were they dead? As per Vera's version, they were dead. Whereas Mrs. Appleton was waiting for them to come to join for the evening tea. So who was right? Whereas we can imagine Frampton's condition, who was terribly scared. We are going to stop here and continue with the remaining in the next class.